Cerro de la Calavera. This is 5.5 miles. All trail sails about 770 feet elevation gain. Add 100 to that, and I'll explain why in a minute. And it is a loop. Getting here is pretty simple, but you do have to drive to like a church area to get to this back parking lot. So just be mindful of that. You actually see the parking lot, and then right there is where the trail starts, right back there. All right, so the important stuff now is those trail details. Counterclockwise versus clockwise does not matter. There's some minor hills up and down. I recommend you take a deviation to Calavera Mountain, and that's the steepest part of that. So you don't escape that if you go one way or the other. It's really the same exact thing. Lots of people went counterclockwise. I was the only one to go clockwise, and it took me a long time before I ran into anybody. So maybe factor that in when you're coming over the weekend or whenever to hike this. Certain sections on the mountain are a bit overgrown. Yeah, near Calavera Mountain, you saw in the video, certain sections of that are very overgrown. Recommend you wear something like I did where you can pull it down and make sure you don't get all scratched up. Muddy right now after some rain, and partial to no shade. Yeah, very little shade. So if you're coming anywhere near the summertime, be mindful of that. Download a map because it's very easy to get lost. You want to make sure you're following the right map. They all intertwine, so you might end up somewhere you're going anyway, but better to know where you're at than not. For pieces of this, watch for bikers. Talked about the steep climb to Calavera Mountain Peak. This is not on there, so make sure you take that deviation, get it a little bit more than, it's about 5.5 miles total, and that's where that 100 feet comes from that I mentioned earlier in the trail guide. The Lake Loop Trail itself is where everything is at, in the sense of like people, trash cans, there's a porta potty, you know, poop bags, all the stuff you need. That's obviously where the majority of the people are. I did that separately on a different hike and trail guide. I'll put that up here. Beautiful, 5.5 miles today. Cool. A little bit warm with the sun. Fantastic weekend to do a hike like this. I'll see you guys next week.